Welcome to the news on NTA International. I'm Stella Inamiti. Anna Olayinka is a sign language interpreter. Let's begin with the headlines. Nigeria and Brazil forge a new partnership on bilateral engagements for improved performance in key sectors. As Senate extends implementation of capital components of 2024 budget, same bill passes second reading at the House of Representatives. Ceasefire between Israel and Iran in jeopardy as both parties trade blames on violations of agreement. Thanks for joining us. Under the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Nigeria is now in a place where investment makes sense, enterprise can thrive, and where the state itself is being retooled to deliver. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima made this declaration at the opening ceremony of the second session of the Nigeria-Brazil Strategic Dialogue Mechanism, SDM. State House correspondent Adeni Taiwo reports that the Vice President and his Brazilian counterpart, Geraldo Alckmin, signed a new Memorandum of Understanding as an addendum to the 2013 agreement which birthed the SDM.
The Nigerian national anthem first, followed by that of the visiting Brazilian delegation, and thus commenced the second session of the Nigeria-Brazil Strategic Dialogue Mechanism, which will see a quantum leap in the level of cooperation and bilateral engagement between the two leading nations in Africa and Latin America. Memorandum of Understanding is a key instrument of bilateral cooperation, and as Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima stepped forward with his Brazilian counterpart Geraldo Alckmin to sign on behalf of their countries, the Nigeria-Brazil Strategic Dialogue Mechanism, earlier signed in 2013, got a fresh impetus.
The Nigeria-Brazil Strategic Dialogue Mechanism was never intended as a ceremonial encounter. It was conceived as a working instrument to bind two kindred nations by tangible cooperation across sectors that matter to our people. This is a partnership of equals, committed to practical outcomes and shaped by mutual interests. We recognize Brazil's experience in biofuels and renewable technologies and see clear opportunities for joint ventures, knowledge transfer, and co-investment.
Nigeria is laying a foundation for a $1 trillion economy. As such, the resumption of structured engagement with Brazil through the SDM must be approached with deliberate clarity of purpose.
Memoranda are only as meaningful as the follow-through they inspire. We must resist the temptation to confuse signing with solving. Let us agree on mechanisms to monitor progress, identify bottlenecks, and hold ourselves to account. To our Brazilian brothers and sisters, we say, let us deepen trade and investment, not just in commodities, but in technology.
Nigeria is the leader on the African continent, says Vice President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, noting that the strategic dialogue carries a robust agenda that reflects the diversity and depth of the relationship between the two countries.
Opportunity for us to build together innovative solutions which can be sustainable, aligned with the values that we share.
Presentation by 7 working groups of the SDM saw the signing of 7 Memorandum of Understandings spread across cooperation on defense, audiovisual cooperation in the creative economy, technical cooperation on energy, livestock, agriculture and food security, collaboration on robust private sector engagement with investors, and cooperation on tackling illicit drugs. More MOUs are expected to be signed at the Nigeria-Brazil Business Forum. From the conference center of the Presidential Villa, Adeni Taiwo, NTA News.
As Brazil recognizes Nigeria as its strategic partner, several areas of collaboration are expected to further advance engagements on a more elaborate strategic front to actualize the MOUs reached in the past, rooted in shared mutual benefits. Garba Natala has more on the Nigeria-Brazil diplomatic relationship owing to the second strategic dialogue, which took place at the presidential villa.
Nigeria and Brazil, two nations separated by the Atlantic Ocean, however, bound by long-standing diplomatic ties that dates back to the 1960s, with over 4 million Afro-Brazilians tracing their roots to Nigeria, in particular the Yoruba lineage. Today, both nations are leveraging this bond to forge stronger economic and political alliances.
It is essential to highlight that trade and investment are instruments for inclusive economic growth and poverty reduction.
The second session of the Nigeria-Brazil Strategic Dialogue provides yet another platform attended by top diplomats and ministers focused on advancing the Memoranda of Understanding signed back in 2013.
Our discussions will focus on key agenda areas: trade and investment, agriculture, defense and intelligence cooperation, culture and health, energy and climate change, and foreign relations.
Trade volume hit more than $2.5 billion this year, with Nigeria exporting crude oil, cashew nuts, and cocoa, while Brazil supplies machinery, automobiles, and agricultural expertise. Now, both governments are solidifying deals for better opportunities where both countries stand to gain. Notably, numerous agreements were signed, led by various top government officials of both countries, including the vice presidents.
Brazil and Nigeria have much to gain from increasing our partnership. This is the task of this strategic dialogue mechanism under the co-chairmanship of our vice presidents.
The strategic collaboration accelerates Nigeria and Brazil's effort in forging new frontiers as key partners in the global south. One thing, though, now remains to advocate on strengthening Nigeria's bid for BRICS and G20 membership as the future looks promising. In Abuja, Garba Muhammad Natala, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu is seeking the collaboration of Denmark for his administration quest to convert the former headers crisis in parts of Nigeria to an economic opportunity for the country. The president addressed the Queen of Denmark, Mary Elizabeth, who visited him in the State House. State House correspondent Musbah Dan Wahab reports.
President Bola Tinubu and First Lady Oluremi received Queen Mary Elizabeth of Denmark. Queen Mary, who is the patron of the United Nations Population Fund, was also here to strengthen the long-standing Nigeria's-Denmark bilateral relations. Denmark has a developed mixed economy, which the World Bank rates as a high-income economy. And the Queen's visit is coming with the possibility of expansion of existing relations between the two countries. President Bola Tinubu briefed his guest on his administration's plan to convert the former headers crisis in some parts of Nigeria to economic opportunities by expanding the country's dairy and livestock economy. He believes that with Nigeria's large population, the sector holds enormous potential for job creation, rural development, and food security. The president, who highlighted his administration's ongoing macroeconomic reforms, welcomes increased Danish cooperation and investments in key sectors such as agriculture and maritime operations. He emphasized the importance of managing Nigeria's growing population, projected to reach 400 million by 2050 through investments in food security, education, healthcare, and job creation. On social development, the president acknowledged the ongoing collaboration between the Queen of Denmark and the First Lady of Nigeria. This includes joint support for food feeding programs and initiatives to reduce the number of out-of-school children, particularly through reforms of the Almajiri education system. Nigeria and Denmark also discussed their shared priority areas in multilateral cooperation.
Denmark is currently a member, a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. It is also soon to assume the presidency of the European Union, and we hope to get support from Denmark in those capacities so that Nigeria also becomes a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council in the year 2030, and also our aspiration of becoming a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council with veto powers. And of course, support in discharging some of our responsibility also as a leader on the African continent, reforming the global financial architecture, reforming the global governance system, reforming the United Nations.
President Tinubu and his First Lady presented gifts to the Queen. In Abuja, Musbah Wahab, NTA News.
Tensions in the Middle East are spiraling as a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran, brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump, is on the brink of collapse. Just as after the agreement was announced, both sides have accused each other of violations, prompting a sharp response from the White House. Justin Ben Unyi has the latest developments.
On Monday evening, President Donald Trump announced a complete and total ceasefire between Israel and Iran following a week of intense conflict sparked by Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities on June 13th and subsequent U.S. attacks on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. The ceasefire, phased in over 24 hours, was hailed as a diplomatic breakthrough, with Trump posting on Truth Social that both nations had agreed to pursue peace, love, and prosperity, but the optimism was short-lived. Early Tuesday, Israel reported 2 missiles launched from Iran at 10:30 a.m. local time, targeting its territory. One missile struck a residential building in Beersheba, killing several people and displacing thousands. Iran's general staff denied firing any missiles, claiming Israel violated the truce by striking a radar array near Tehran, where explosions were reported. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz justified the strike as a response to Iran's alleged blatant violation, ordering further attacks on regime targets in the Iranian capital. President Trump accused both nations of undermining the ceasefire. Speaking to reporters before departing for the NATO summit, Trump said, "Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they dropped a boatload of bombs. I am not happy with them. I am not happy with Iran either." He also posted on Truth Social, urging Israel to halt its strikes, writing, "Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it is a major violation. Bring your pilots home now." Sources confirm Trump held a firm phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who agreed to scale back but not cancel the bombing mission. The crisis began when Israel launched surprise attacks on Iranian nuclear sites, killing top military commanders, followed by Iran's retaliatory missile strike on the U.S. Al-Udeid air base in Qatar, which caused no casualties. Iran's state media claimed the ceasefire was imposed on the enemy after their military response to U.S. aggression. Meanwhile, oil prices, which dropped by 7% after the ceasefire announcement, remain volatile as fears of escalation persist. As of June 24, 2025, the ceasefire hangs by a thread. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, vowed punishment for Israel, while Netanyahu's office signaled readiness to respond forcefully to any further violations. The international community, including Pakistan and North Korea, has condemned the U.S. and Israeli actions, with Russia urged to intervene diplomatically. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. We'll take a break now. More reports when we return.
I therefore call on my colleagues, or media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives. These, of course, are not freedom fighters. They are murderers, kidnappers, and destroyers, and they must be presented as such.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni will seek re-election for a 7th term in polls due early next year, according to a senior official from the ruling party. Museveni was widely expected to run again, but this is the first confirmation from his National Resistance Movement NRM party. Details with Justin Bemunyi.
The country will hold general elections in January 2026, in which voters will choose both the president and lawmakers. Yoweri Museveni, 80, has held power in Uganda since 1986. He is the 4th longest ruling leader in Africa after Teodoro Obiang from Equatorial Guinea for 46 years. Paul Biya from Cameroon, 43 years, and Denis Sassou Nguesso of the Congo Republic, 41 years. Under his tenure, the NRM has changed the 1995 constitution twice to allow him to extend his rule. The 2005 amendment removed presidential terms limit, and in 2017, the Ugandan parliament voted to withdraw age eligibility requirements. Museveni is expected to formalize his bid for his party's nomination on Saturday, according to Tanga Odoi, the chairman of the NRM's electoral body. The president will pick up expression of interest forms for 2 positions, one for chairperson of the party and the other to contest if he is given the chance for presidential flag bearer, Odoi said in a press conference. Museveni's biggest opponent in the 2026 polls should be Bobi Wine. The singer-turned-politician came second in the 2021 elections but claimed the results were fraudulent. Wine has already said he intends to run again next year. Museveni has shrugged off recurring accusations from human rights groups and opposition leaders that he has maintained his grip on power through patronage and intimidation. He claims his long rule is due to lasting popular support. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
The Senate has amended the 2024 Appropriation Act, extending the implementation of the capital component of the budget to 31st December 2025. It had earlier been extended from 31st December 2024 to 30th June 2025. This extension, according to the appropriation committees of both chambers, is to allow for full implementation of the budget and enable ministries, departments and agencies of government to effectively utilize funds released to them. The legislators also agree the extension is critical for the completion of key development projects nearing completion, in order to also avoid compounding the problem of abandoned projects.
This is good because it deals with our national development. It touches the roots the development of our country. You're talking about capital budget. Thank God is recurrent, are always paid to agencies, MDAs, as at when due. No problem with that. Salaries are being paid and everything. But the core issue now is that of the capital.
Meanwhile, at the House of Representatives, members also passed for second reading the bill to amend the 2024 Appropriation Act and extend its capital components from 30th June 2025 to 31st December 2025. The House has referred the bill to its Committee on Supply for further legislative action.
This time, the budget is still not substantially funded, and I believe it is in the interest of the country for us to move for this extension of the budget from June 30th to 31st December.
National Assembly correspondent Mitaire Ikben also reports that President Bola Tinubu has declined assent to the National Assembly Library Trust Fund Establishment Amendment Bill 2025. In his letter read at plenary by Speaker Abbas Tajuddin, President Tinubu cited constitutional and policy conflict in the legislation as part of reasons for withholding his assent.
Therein go against the settled law and policies of the federal government of Nigeria as it relates to funding of agencies under the National Assembly. If this bill becomes law, these provisions will establish an unsustainable precedent against the public interest. Further to the above, I will not be granting presidential assent to bill. I hope that the House of Representatives will take necessary steps to fix the identified issues with the legislation.
Effective management of radiation emergencies and minimizing exposure is taking center stage at an International Atomic Energy Agency capacity building training underway in Nigeria. Ayodeji Makinde reports that the regional training focuses on the safe application of nuclear and radiation-based technologies.
Scenes like these are increasingly familiar, whether by air, sea, or land. This growing reality poses significant concern for regulatory authorities, especially the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority, NNRA.
So radiation sources are used extensively in Nigeria.
NNRA Director General Dr. Yao Usman Idris explains that everyday sources from 5G technology and electric power lines to microwave ovens and airport body scanners highlight the urgent need to mitigate the harmful effects of ionizing radiation. Officials from over 35 countries have gathered in Abuja for a specialized IAEA training program on international safety standards. Over the course of 12-day training, participants will explore collaborative strategies to close existing gaps and anticipate future needs in radiation safety networks.
You will have module feedback and workshop feedback, group work presentations and case study analysis.
The IAEA has asked the NNRA to provide 6 names of people that we think that they can be experts, that will be moving from one country to another, training other African countries on radiation emergency and preparing a response.
After all, radiation emission is part of everyday life. All efforts are geared towards minimizing exposure to the harmful particles. In Abuja, Ayodeji Makinde, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu has celebrated a popular stand-up comedian, compere and actor Ali Baba Akpobome on his 60th birthday. Ali Baba, who hails from Agbaha, although in Delta State, began his professional career performing at corporate events and appearing on television and radio shows. Widely regarded as the father of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, President Tinubu enjoins Ali Baba to continue inspiring the younger generation of comedians to hone their skills to reach the zenith. The National Emergency Management Agency has conducted a full-scale flood response simulation exercise in Ogbaru, Anambra State, as part of its proactive efforts to enhance national preparedness and response capacity. The exercise, which was held along the banks of the River Niger, was led by the Director General of NEMA, Zubaida Umar, alongside Executive Secretaries of Anambra and Ebonyi States. Ilyasu Ali Yakubu reports.
The exercise practically showcased the processes of evacuation, rescue, rehabilitation, camping, and provision of food and non-food items for the upkeep of the victims. This is to give the state and local organizing committees on flood response basic techniques as first responders.
Amen. I'm appreciating the NEMA, even the SEMA, even the LEMSI.
They help us for this flood.
The DG NEMA, Zubaida Umar, emphasized the urgent need for early actions and coordinated efforts by all stakeholders to mitigate the impact of flooding in Nigeria. She noted that flooding remains one of the most recurrent and devastating natural disasters in the country, with far-reaching impacts on lives, livelihoods, and infrastructure. The NEMA boss acknowledged the recent flood disaster witnessed in Mokwa, Niger State, as a stark reminder of Nigeria's vulnerability, emphasizing the essence of the simulation as not only to test the operational plans and protocols of the intervening agencies, but also to identify existing gaps and reinforce interagency collaborations.
And what we need states to understand is that all disasters are local, and we have to have local emergency management committees who are always the first responders. And when they're overwhelmed and cannot handle situations, we move to the State Emergency Management Agency. And once the State Emergency Management Agency is overwhelmed, then the NEMA steps in. That is the federal government stepping in. So we all need to take responsibility of what needs to be done.
Other speakers commended the DG NEMA for the brilliant idea, saying the simulation exercise will go a long way in reawakening the intervening spirit of the first responders.
I think we have learned a lot from this. It will help us in further helping our job doing better than we've been doing it before.
The exercise is to be conducted in other regions of the country for national spread. From Ogbaru in Anambra State, Ilyasu Ali Yakubu, NTA News.
And this is where we end the news. Thanks for watching. I am Stella Inamiti and Anna Olayinka, the sign language interpreter.